you're wondering, what is the meaning of life? What is the point of doing anything? Meditation, breathwork can help immensely. It can retune and refine our senses and our perception so that we can see, understand the truth, the present moment right now in a much more fulfilling way. There's a lot of relaxation, there's a lot of peace, there's a lot of joy on that side of life.
I'm here with my brother Karthik for our first interview ever. We'll cover a couple of topics that are relevant to me and other young men to live more meaningful lives. So I know you've been a meditator for 14 years. What can you share from your experiences as a meditator that could help other young men who would like to lead better lives?
Yeah. My name is Karthik. I discovered meditation when I was roughly 21 through some friends. And I've been practicing it ever since in different ways, through music, through actual practice of meditation, breath work. And I've sort of been diving into that aspect of life. And it's become the things I learned from meditation, the wisdom that came out of it, has started leaching into other parts of life in a very good way, and it's enriched my life a lot. I work currently in the film industry, and I usually often do long hours, 12, 14 hours, in a rapidly changing environment with everyone very focused, high energy, intense sort of action, with a lot of stress that can come with it. And I've had the opportunity to truly implement and test everything I've learned in the best ways possible. The results haven't been perfect. I'm still learning, but it's been a wonderful journey. If I had to summarize my learnings of meditation, or what the benefits have been for me, and why someone might feel the need to explore that aspect of life. The innate benefit is it has connected me, rooted me into an underlying truth of life. Something that is unchanging. And it's grounded me in the present moment. And what that has done is, any task I do, any art I express myself with, whether it's music, playing, hiking, soaking up a beautiful scenery like a sunset or a sunrise, it's made that experience a lot richer. It's deepened my connection with myself, so I can watch everything that is going on in my mind, with my emotions, with my dialogues, and observe them almost like a third person, with a sense of dispassion, without getting embroiled in it too much. And even if I did, I wouldn't be embroiled in it for too long. And that's enabled me to feel a lot happier. It's reduced my demands on life.
Meaning your expectations?
Yeah, it's reduced my expectations in life, and it's reduced my, it sort of made me low maintenance to a good degree. So whatever I enjoy, I live a very material life. I'm deeply invested in a career. I have a family, a wife, running a household, and different community activities, being active in all of that. So I live a very materially rich, busy life. But it still feels simple. It still feels light-hearted, joyful, and energizing. If someone out there listening is going through a hard time or feeling an intense sense of like lethargy or dullness or a sense of hopelessness, or you're wondering what is the meaning of life, what is the point of doing anything, meditation, breathwork can help immensely. It can retune and refine our senses and our perception so that we can see, understand the truth, the present moment right now in a much more fulfilling way. There's a lot of relaxation, there's a lot of peace, there's a lot of joy on that side of life, in that way of living. As you practice meditation, you will soon see, and I have noticed very apparently, that being present in a human body, experiencing life this way, in this time in the world, is an incredible gift. And it can be very enriching, deeply fulfilling.
And all of that can happen with no real change in exterior or material circumstances.
Yes, and all of that has, all of those insights, that truth, that quality of living has very little to nothing to do with where you were born, what situation you are in right now, what is your age, what is your career, what is your financial standing, what are your relationship status, or what you may have been through in the past, how much trauma you might have had, how sick you might be, how weak the body might be. As long as you have breath in the body, you can experience meditation through this instrument of the body. And when you can experience stillness, meditation, you can see reality as is, without all those layers that usually weigh us down and trick us into believing life is very complicated.
So the message you have is life is simple, and meditation can help you rediscover that. We already knew that as children. We've just forgotten.
Yeah. A lot of wisdom can be found in observing children, toddlers or younger. And a lot of that same wisdom can come from observing simply nature. There's a certain innocence about nature, trees, animals in their natural habitat, living their life, and in toddlers, in children. And you'll notice this when we observe children. You notice that they're crying at one time, they're dancing at one time, they're joyful and laughing at one time. They make deep eye contact and stare at people without feeling a sense of embarrassment or shyness or needing to look away. They're very natural. They're very innocent. And maybe that's what draws us to them too. And there is a connection, there's a joy, a love when you watch children simply play innocently, or when they laugh, it makes us smile. Same with pets. So, yeah, there is a lot of wisdom to be observed and insights to be found, answers to our struggles and our pain and sorrow. A lot of those answers can be found by simply observing nature, toddlers, younger children.
That's something I've been thinking about, because it seems like parenting is a second chance for people to have a childhood that is more in their control. Because as children, we don't have as much control over our childhoods. That's more on our parents and our schools and our friends, and we just live it to some degree. And then we gain more control as we grow older. But then as adults, you get a chance to implement your own parenting philosophy and to be the kind of parent you wish you had.
It's possible. I can't speak too much to the experience of parenting because I'm not a parent myself and I haven't thought about that aspect of my life too deeply. More so on a surface level of will I be having kids in the future? Just more of a sense of wondering. I don't have a preference or anything at the moment of whether I will be a parent, any strong feelings. It's just something that may happen, something that may not. Both are okay. But at the source, from what I observe with parents in general, one, it can just be a natural tendency because we see it, we observe it, we sort of inherited it by having parents, and it could be a very natural thing that we want to do. Preserving life, passing on. And maybe in a deeper sense, it also, at the end of the day, we all want to share. When we go through anything, ups or downs, we want to have somebody to share our joys and sorrows with. We want someone to share our enthusiasm with, our learnings with. We want to be able to speak and be heard. So maybe parenting is one way of doing that, one way of expressing that.
And it's the same with finding a life partner romantically, right? Somebody that you can trust your being with and expect the same from, and you have this reciprocal commitment.
Yeah, I think it happens. For me, I'm married. I have a partner of roughly 2 years now, and we'd been dating for 2 years before that. So I've known Raman for roughly 4 years together as a couple. In the initial stages of dating, there is a sense of euphoria, there's a sense of excitement where it's like, wow, I feel like butterflies in my stomach for this person when I'm thinking about them or like in their presence or like looking forward to meeting them next or messaging them. And then there is also a sense of euphoria and high from the fact that, despite all my judgments and flaws about myself or how I think of myself, perceive myself, someone out there accepts me, likes me, and values spending time with me and being with me. So there is a sense of joy in that. Over time, that fades away because it just happens, and it is more, the euphoria is no longer there. Maybe we start to take that for granted, or you start to feel like that is a given, and you move on to other things. So the senses move on to other desires and other ambitions. But on a deeper level, the connection, I think, is more of... So the question here is, initially there was a euphoria to the relationship, but then that euphoria is temporary. It can only last so long. You're starting to spend every day together, doing things together, managing logistics together. It can be part of the routine life. There I have found that the juice, the treasure of being in a relationship comes from, over time, developing a sense of respect for my partner and honoring them, honoring their time, honoring the fact that they're present with me and they're sharing time and space with me. and having a deep sense of love and respect for them, and practicing a sense of unconditional love. Because when we spend more time with anyone in any relationship, beyond the surface level joy, there is a lot of its imperfections become apparent. The mind can become cynical about different things. So it's really important to catch myself and come back to the truth, come back to what is permanent, what is temporary, what is surface level, and what is a deeper truth. So it's put me on a path of, it's almost being in a relationship has set up guardrails for me to be more responsible, be more kind with my words and my presence, and be a source of love and enthusiasm for someone else. Because there was a realization that someone else's happiness and direction in life has much more of a bearing based on how I show up to every day.
Do you find that it is sometimes easier to show up in that intentionally compassionate way, that more sort of present in life way, when you know there's someone else relying on you showing up that way, not just your own existence?
Not initially. So usually at the mind level, if I were to think that someone depends on me, someone is counting on me, I would feel a sense of pressure or burden or heaviness. And that can only motivate me so much. Beyond that, I need something else to happen for that to happen. So when I thought about it, it actually took me on a deeper journey looking into myself, which is, why am I not able to show up in this instance? Or why am I saying something unkind in this instance? Or why am I not being fully engaged and in the present moment with my partner or dialogue? And when I ask those questions to myself, it's usually not an intellectual answer like, you don't love them enough, or you need to love, honor, respect more, or show up for them more because they depend on you. Like, that wasn't the answer I got. It was more like, oh, you are not well, I am not well rested myself. Or I've been abusing my body too much for the last few days. Maybe I haven't been eating right. Maybe I've been binge watching too much TV, or sleeping late, or not exercising, or skipping my meditations and yoga. And I found that it's all just a signal to say, take care of yourself better. Because when my energy is high, I'm well rested, I'm joyful, and I've taken care of myself. My presence exudes that naturally. It's very hard and difficult to micromanage every word I say, everything I do, because then it becomes very mechanical. It's not as joyful or creative. And it takes me away from that very natural state that we were talking about when we observe children or nature or plants. So when I take care of myself better in all dimensions, simply put, it's 4 things. What I put in my body, whether it's food, water, how deeply I rest, meditating, doing breath work, keeping my energy level up, my enthusiasm up, taking care of my body and working out and keeping it strong. When I take care of those aspects, naturally everything else falls into place. Okay. So usually any struggles I have, whether it's my relationship with my partner, or the amount of joy I'm getting from work, or when I'm feeling negative emotions towards somebody or a situation where I can't bear it or it's hard to tolerate, rather than trying to wish away the situation or the person or complain about it, I've been lucky enough to cultivate a habit of looking at myself and seeing how I can be my best self more often than not. And then usually the way the problem exists changes completely. I see it in a different light. I see the truth in it. Sometimes it can be as simple as the problem ceases to exist. It's just not there. Or it transforms very quickly into something else, because that is the nature of life and situations and people. Everything is very transitionary. Our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, our opinions. So things just change. So I just go back to myself and connect with the part of myself that is unchanging, that is true, beyond these five senses. It's a very silent place, and there's a lot of joy and enthusiasm and beauty that comes out of it. And it starts to express itself through my words, through music, through my presence. And that becomes a sort of flywheel effect. It is feeding back more energy to my body and my senses and my spirit, and less of the negative emotions, negative situations stick to me, and I keep coming back to the present moment and enjoying it. Young men or not, if you are a person with a body and breath, i.e. you're alive, meditation can immensely help uplift your quality of life. The simplest way to get started on meditation breathwork is to find a program or a guide or a good teacher. Okay. It's a very sacred and important phenomenon that happens in our life. And you may have observed this in your life in multiple ways. When you recognize you don't know something, and that thing that you don't know, you have a desire and aspiration to learn it and achieve something higher, you find someone who can teach you more about it, who's walked on that path. And meditation is something specifically that you learn so much from the presence of somebody who is embodying that. It's a very intimate, connected relationship. One-on-one mentorship. So I would imagine a simple app or reading a book. Actually, not just imagine, I know this for a fact. Reading books and just trying to do it through an app will only take you so far. Because if it can, every movie we have watched with deep spiritual insights or emotional insights would have enriched us and made us, created a permanent change in ourselves. So mostly movies, apps, books can create a desire. It can spark an awareness that, oh, there's something I don't know about and I'd love to learn about this and practice it more. But the actual practice of it and diving into it, it's very helpful to have a good teacher who has embarked on that path and wants nothing from you in return, is just offering it and sharing it in a very dispassionate way simply because they know and they found it useful. Yeah. As a caveat, I don't consider myself qualified to share this knowledge in a deep way with anyone, because it's the source is from an ancient text, and it was embodied and shared by somebody who's been deeply a very, very spiritually grounded monk, saint. And I heard them, I was in their presence, and I sort of imbibed and felt that wisdom as they were sharing this in a talk recently. So the caveat is that this is second-hand knowledge.
Or third-hand even.
But it has deeply impacted me, and I've been chewing on it more and really thinking about it and observing it in my life more. So this wisdom was from an Art of Living talk, and it was shared by Swami Sadyojata a few weeks ago in Vancouver in a talk. And he opened the talk by actually being completely still with his eyes closed. It created a chain effect of everyone doing the same. And there was a sense of silence, quietness, stillness in the room. It was a quietness not of fear or anticipation or shock. It was more of a quietness of being relaxed. And there he opened the chat by saying, whatever we start doing, any task, we start with silence and we end with silence. So this is something we can deeply think about. Any task we start with silence and complete with silence. What does that do for us? One, if I'm about to embark on a task, when I take a moment to start with silence, it naturally empties my mind, brings me to the present moment, and it gives me a sense of clarity. Why am I doing this? What is so important about it? Or simply an awareness and a recognition is, this is what I'm doing next. It is important. I'm going to honor it. It gives a sense of clarity for whatever task it is. Then, once you embark with a sense of clarity, it invokes a sense of commitment. You are fully there, engaged in the task and nothing else. And so naturally you enjoy the task, you do it fully, your mind, senses, everything is engaged, and it gives you the best it can in that moment, whatever fulfillment there is. And when you complete the task in the same way, and you recognize the task is complete without a rush to jump to the next thing or busy the mind with the next thing, it gives you a moment, an ability to be content. And with that contentment, you move on to the next thing. So starting with silence, ending with silence, and practicing that gives you start with a sense of clarity, you move through the task with a sense of commitment, and you complete the task feeling a sense of contentment. Isn't that amazing? Like every task we embark on, no matter how small, from washing dishes to walking your pet to playing some music or whatever it is, you're always moving from task to task with a sense of clarity and completing it with a sense of contentment. And then our whole life becomes an expression of just clarity, commitment, contentment. So it was a beautiful, deep, long talk. One of the aspects that struck deep more for me and was very relevant to where I was at that time, he described from the Bhagavad Gita that there was, in the text, in the story, Krishna, the Lord, the divinity, who is all-knowing or all-pervading. pure energy, pure love, is sharing with a seeker, someone who's sincerely seeking and asking questions. So that's all of us in life. So divinity is speaking to the seeker, and divinity is explaining how does destruction happen? How do we go on the path to destruction? And by identifying this path to destruction, it naturally makes us aware and helps us not go down that path again and again. So it starts with desires. And there are two kinds of desires. One is like a very innocent, gentle desire of like, oh, I'd like to go for a walk. Or I'd like to go to the theater and watch this movie. Usually, if some obstacle comes up, there's a storm or the weather changes and you're unable to do it, you're like, oh, never mind that. I was initially planning that. I'll do something else. I'll go make some tea. I'll hang out at home. I'll read a book. There are desires like that. And then there are desires like, oh, you read a post about a new car or a new fashionable item. And you see it and you're like, oh, I would like this. It looks nice. Later the thought grows, you see another post or another ad. And then you're like, hey, I would really like to have this. I need it. It's important in my life. And then as you're going through the days, it builds up and builds up. And you're constantly chewing on the same thought. And it becomes a heavy desire of sorts. And it grows to a point where if the desire is not fulfilled, it affects your sense of happiness or fulfillment. So there are those two kinds of desires. So he's talking about the second kind. You have desires, and if the desires don't get fulfilled or they don't get fulfilled fast enough, it may make us angry, it may make us depressed, it may make us dull, dejected. All of these negative emotions come up. Then, as these negative emotions come up and make us angry and enraged, it affects our ability, our memory, our ability to recall what is wisdom, what is true, what is really happiness. And we've observed this when we're usually very angry and we have an angry outburst. It's almost like people narrate it as, I don't know what came over me, I didn't mean those things, I didn't mean to do that. So there's a sense of sorrow, grief, dejection, disappointment.
Regret.
Yeah, regrets. And when we also lose first that ability to recall wisdom and recall useful information on how to be kind, happy, then it also leads to us forgetting what is right and what is wrong, losing our ability to discern between right and wrong. And beyond that is complete destruction. Because when we lose our ability to do what is right, what is wrong, it then permits us, it leads to us being unkind, being violent, being all of those things. And it's cyclical. We've had that happen to us multiple times. It takes us down a path of destruction. It makes us feel low again, dull again, and then we latch onto another desire. And then that other desire leads on the same path. Even if the desire gets fulfilled, you're left with a feeling of emptiness and you latch onto the next one. So you can't win. So it's just something for us to be aware of, and it is natural, it happens in everybody's minds. So how do you avoid it in reverse order? At the source, the moment a desire comes up, the first thing we do is observe it, notice it, become aware of it, and choose to be lighthearted with it, not put too much weight on it. And the second thing that happens is you also recognize when the desires come, there is no point in chewing on them. There's no point constantly thinking about them and contemplating on them, because that is the next step. So when we can catch ourselves at those phases and come back and say, hey, everything in life that I do, whatever desires crop up, if I do them lightheartedly, just like an innocent planning to take a walk, and not add so much weight and importance and layers of heaviness to it,
Pressure.
it makes life a lot simpler.
And when life is
And
simple.
it enables us to stay out of that path of destruction. In the realm of spirituality and personal growth, it is very easy for us to think linearly. Like, oh, if I do step 1, 2, 3, 4, will it lead to this result? And that's where this whole thing of enlightenment comes. But in truth, enlightenment is something that simply is. It exists in nature, it exists in the moment, it exists in energy and everything that makes up all of creation, all of the observable universe. In a way, you can say that enlightenment is not really the point, or there's no need to embark on that journey. It is simply about being right now, being relaxed right now, and practicing that ability to refine our actions and our presence. It is not a bad thing to cultivate a desire for something that is much bigger, something like enlightenment, or wondering about the nature of the universe. Essentially, if you think about and ponder on something much bigger than us, something much bigger than this small creation or this small space, time, decade, it automatically takes away space from small desires, and it fills our awareness, our consciousness with deeper questions. So it's a good thing, it's healthy.
Interesting.
It's a nice way to replace the bandwidth that is being taken up by things that make us unhappy and miserable and low energy, to refilling that with something else, something bigger than ourselves. And anytime we connect with something bigger than ourselves, there is a lot more energy in us. And we feel more uplifted and we move forward. Which is why we, even with music, we long for live concerts. Or we're playing a video game, we long for streaming. We get streaming, we're longing for streaming tournaments and viewing them. Anytime there is an innate longing to connect with something higher and bigger than us, simply because it uplifts us. But now that you recognize that, why not connect with something beyond all of that, much, much bigger, that is infinitely more deep?